they used those tactics then. And of course, now they have modern technology and improved methodology. And so when we see these kinds of things done to people, done consistently to a wide category of people as well as large numbers, you have to say, well, something is still afoot. And of course, my favorite thing about the CIA and folks of that sort is when they do get caught is, oh, well, we didn't do that, and we won't do it again.
This also reminds me, I had an interview a while back with Alex Constantine, and while we were discussing a plane crash at the time that killed a 9/11 family member, and we were tracing just the connections there, one of the other things we talked about was his book, The Covert War Against Rock, and we discussed, in brief detail, people like Tupac Shakur or Bob Marley or John Lennon, folks of those stature that, in that kind of massive level of influence that those individuals could have.
And not just them, mind you, people around them. I mean, one of my clients was directly associated with one of those individuals, and I'm going to hesitate to name, but it's interesting that when you're a targeted person, they will also target your support, and they'll do it differently perhaps, but they'll take away your support structure. And so Randy Quaid was left with no place to go, for example. He had to literally flee the country. It's just not a situation you want to find yourself in.
One of the things we discussed in greater detail with Alex Constantine was the case of Michael Hutchence, who was the lead singer of a band called NXS, who was found hanged, and it has always been sort of officially called an accidental death due to autoerotic asphyxiation, which was the situation, they say, of David Carradine, which again Randy Quaid mentioned. The story Constantine gets into with Michael Hutchence is that he was beginning to realize, and just as you said, maybe knew some things that he didn't know he knew, dealing with the gangsters and banksters who were running and funneling and laundering his money, as he was starting to look around and go, gee, I sure should have a hell of a lot more money than this. He was found with a busted lip and bruises. That, again, this was supposed to be an accidental suicide. So this is something that Randy Quaid says, is that these are the gangsters and banksters that are manipulating world financial markets.
Absolutely. In any situation where you find somebody who's in any way prominent in a news story who is suicided, even the local you announced
the Oregon kind of philanthropist, technology entrepreneur, Winningstad.
Winningstad, yeah. I would love to dig into the details of that, because I'm sure I could find something suspicious. Anytime you have somebody who's famous like that and they're suicided, you got to ask yourself, well, is that really logical? And the arguments for what constitutes suicide is really very interesting. If you take a look at the 50 dead microbiologists, for example, there was one who was suicided himself by stuffing his body under a chair after, let's see, what was it? There was blood splattered all over the room, and his body was found stuffed under a chair, and yet his body was discovered by ambulance drivers who were responding to a mysterious call. So how does that constitute suicide? I just don't get it. Police will do anything to avoid having to look for a boogeyman. If there is conspiracy involved, somebody can pull a string, and the police will just say, yeah, it was a suicide. Coroner reports will say it's a suicide.
And they don't always do that out of being in on it. That's sometimes, I think, the mistake. Sometimes the alternative media or conspiracy researchers can make the mistake of broad stroke implicating everyone in a cover-up, although the cover-up is the crime. And
yes, and the police can be directly involved. I mean, I know quite a few dirty cops that some of them I've given some particular trouble, caused one to resign a high post, but it is absolutely true. The average cop basically does what he's told. And and the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is in major communities, quite often the chief of police and the head of the public relations arm, the PR officer, and the head of the internal affairs organization are quite often CIA in-place assets. So it's very easy to manipulate the police if you have a need.
Which then just reminds me and takes us back to, as we were reporting on earlier in the episode about the anniversary of the JFK assassination, you got the Dallas Police Department and their connections to Jack Ruby.
Exactly, and the same thing in an RFK assassination. The head of police was a former CIA. And just as scary, kind of tying to the TSA issue. Homeland Security, the first two, Tom Ridge and his number two man, were both former CIA assassins out of Operation Phoenix, working through the DOD in Vietnam, and that was a mass murder program against citizens, basically, for political purposes. And what it really did, of course, was it gave CIA control to access of drugs in Southeast Asia.
Now we're getting to the key there,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, that a lot of these operations can perform multiple functions.
Right. Well, and another key person, Lou Conine, who became one of the first heads of the DEA, was also out of that program. Of course, the very first thing they did, outside of shutting down all of the non-CIA approved drug outlets,
the competition
was to go to war in South America in an attempt to try to get a hold of the drug flow there.
And these intelligence connections, I again go back to that episode I was discussing earlier of the Jesse Ventura show, which I don't know, have you ever seen episodes of his show?
I have to be frank, I've not been too happy with Jesse based on the one show I did watch. I have a lot of people tell me that I need to watch more shows. I tend to look at that show as being trying to get you a little bit excited and not quite give you what you really want to hear.
Absolutely.
And also to be self-grandizing. But
I very much so. That it's almost like he's kind of taken several pages from the Alex Jones book and is doing a TV show about it. And it's very sensationalized. But ultimately, would I rather folks maybe watch that on television than Dancing with the Stars?
Well, yeah,
probably.
And of course, he's going to have a following that's already hooked into those things, but he's also going to be introducing new people into it, and so there's some value to increasing public awareness.
One of the things on this episode that I had my girlfriend watch with me, and we watched it on the anniversary date, she didn't know that Poppy Bush was the head of the CIA.
Oh.
When he mentioned that part, it's like, yeah, you never really hear that much about that. This guy who apparently had never been in the CIA before suddenly made the head of it in 1976.
And most people didn't know he was head of oh shoot, I've got a mental block. But he was in charge of the big pharma company that developed LSD, and the CIA ordered it wouldn't even exist except the CIA ordered 12 million doses. And of course, gave most of that to Timothy Leary.
Does that connect to the mistake they made in the amount that they ordered, or I'm forgetting a story where they mistook doses for ounces, or
that was a cover story to try to apologize for some kind of serious outcomes, I believe. The whole program. The whole thing about LSD is the military and the CIA used it to try to find tools to help interrogate people, as well as to switch them over to their way of thinking, or to simply befuddle them. I mean, it was basically a form of political control technology to that extent. And yet at the same time, it became a perfect tool to to help dumb us down overall. I mean, if you can get a whole generation to become druggies,
and drop out,
and who cares if they become activists? Nobody's going to pay attention to them because they're druggies. So it was a wonderful multi-function tool, but they really didn't understand it, I don't think.
What I thought you were going to mention about Poppy Bush was his involvement in what was called Operation Zapata, which was the offshore gun running that connects to the whole Bay of Pigs thing.
Yeah, exactly. I would encourage everybody to read Mark Lane's Plausible Denial or read my book, Fatal Rebirth. Both of those books include courtroom testimony by CIA agents, and of course the trial was of a CIA agent, E. Howard Hunt, basically tying him and Jack Ruby and the entire group of people involved in Watergate, except for perhaps G. Gordon Liddy.
I was going to say the aforementioned G. Gordon Liddy.
Yes, in point of facts, I don't think he likes me very much. I know I don't like him very much, but he's very cute. He has his own radio show.
I know. And we just, I think, see when we start to connect those dots that, again, that can be the good thing of something like the Jesse Ventura show, is that people can watch and go, oh, and if they're interested, go do more research about those angles.
Exactly. It is not impossible to find information. It's simply that it is too easy to drown it out with other information.